All right, with that, Jessica Harris of Canine Salute, welcome to 1 Million Cups.
Good morning. Thank you so much. This is awesome. So hopefully it's a room full of dog lovers for the most part. Yes, dog lovers. If not, we probably will not be friends after this. Yes. Perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and actually start passing some samples around so everyone can get a look here. While we talk.
Can we open the bags?
Yes, so actually you can. The bags are not sealed on the top, so you can open the bags. If you have dogs, feel free to take a couple out. Feel free to sample them yourself. The cranberry coconut goes really well with coffee, so if you want to try that.
I only get one, so don't.
So a little bit about myself, why I'm here, why I'm telling you to eat dog treats for breakfast. So I am a retired combat veteran. I served for 20 years in the Washington State Army National Guard as a combat medic. I enlisted in 1995, my senior year of high school when I was 17. I was only going to do 6 years, go to college. Originally started out as a weekend warrior, 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks a year, just like my recruiter promised me. And about 6 years in, I thought, well, this isn't too bad. I'm doing pretty well. Enlisted for 3 more years, and then shortly after my second enlistment, of course, 9/11 happened. So the reason I went in for college money kind of changed, and my purpose for why I stayed in the military for 20 years to serve, it changed, and it just became a bigger focus. So my transition experience was really good, and it was easy, whereas if there are veterans in the room or people that are just familiar with kind of that transition process, it's not always an easy process. Veterans struggle to find meaningful work. They struggle to find jobs that pay as well as the pay that some of us can get in the military if you are a career service member. So my transition was easy. I got a job at UNC Healthcare as the Administrative Director of Cardiac and Vascular Surgery. So I had never been to North Carolina. Thought, well, this sounds great. So I packed up my house. The only time I had been out here was when I interviewed for the job. Packed everything up. That was in July of 2014, and by the first week of October, I was here, boots on the ground, working. So it was great. Thought this is what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. I was going to get my MBA, work in healthcare administration, make a ton of money, make all these great changes at hospitals. It doesn't really work like that. And so about 4 months in, I realized this is not what I wanted to do with my life. I don't want to sit behind a computer in an office looking at spreadsheets all day while people are making a lot more money than I am. So UNC decided actually about 10 months after I moved here, they no longer needed my position. So I was laid off 10 months after I moved across the country. The best part is it was also 5 weeks after I closed on a house. I don't have another income. I'm a single person, so I didn't have someone else to depend on. So a few months in, well, again, I thought I would get a job the next week. I'm living in the Research Triangle. I have this great degree, 20 years in the service, working at UNC. I will literally get a job next week. People will be begging me to come work for them. I was unemployed for 15 months, and then when I did get a job, it was only part-time, and the pay was pretty much what I was making in college. So a few months after I was laid off, I actually came across the frontier. There was an event called Startup Veterans in the fall of 2015. I was sitting on my couch, feeling sorry for myself. What am I going to do? How am I going to pay my mortgage? And I already kind of had some other business ideas and had gone through some programs that the military offers if you want to take kind of an entrepreneur route. And so I came to this event, found the frontier, found Startup Veterans, happened to sit directly behind Bill Warner, which I'm sure most of you know. And from there it was kind of history, and they really haven't been able to get rid of me since. All right, so the pet industry, dog treats. Why dog treats? Most people think that, oh, it's cute. I talk to a lot of people. That's cute. You make dog treats out of your house. Well, not really the case anymore. Yes, it started that way, and then I moved into my garage. I had some capital that I received, and I was able to get some commercial equipment. Kind of started that. What I'll talk about here in a couple minutes is really my challenge and kind of my ask of you all, and that really is going into manufacturing and distribution. Those are my biggest challenges and struggles right now. The pet industry is huge, and it's only growing. There was a big shift about 10 years ago. In 2007, there were a lot of products coming out of China, and so there were a lot of dog deaths, sicknesses. Consumers just demanded that products are made here in the US, and pet parents are just smarter about what they're feeding their pets. So that's changing. Also, millennials are really changing the pet industry. People are waiting longer to have children, and so they have pets. And they also want to get behind social causes, so you really have to have kind of a social mission behind your business. So how I got started is 1 week before a local business contest ended, I came across it, I entered it, and I won. So it was with the Support Center, that's what they used to be called, they're now the Carolina Small Business Development Fund in Raleigh. And I entered it about 4 days before it ended, submitted my business plan, all these great ideas, and the next week I got a call that I was one of 3 finalists. So the ultimate winner was voted through public votes, and I ended up winning at the last minute by 9 votes. I mean, literally 5 o'clock on that Friday when it ended. A huge push from the people here at the Frontier, the Entredot, Bunker Labs, they supported me the whole way and really got me going. So this is how I got capital to start the business. All right, so these are the products going around, as you'll see. So on the back of all the bags, so why is Canine Salute different? If you look at the back of the bags, there's a tribute to a fallen police canine. I served alongside some canines during my time in the military and just developed a real respect and appreciation for working dogs. And so the purpose of featuring the dogs is to really bring awareness to the public of why police dogs are important and how can we help fund these departments to get protective vests for their dogs. Oddly enough, they'll spend $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 on a dog, but then they won't spend $2,500 to get medical equipment, protective vests. So that all comes through community donations. This is Canine Solo. He's out of Washington State. So really the way I market, or what has been the easiest and cheapest, is Instagram. It's really weird. I didn't have an Instagram page personally prior to the business, and someone said you need to get on Instagram, and I went out there, and there are pup-fluencers. There are dogs with 2 million followers, hundreds of thousands of followers. It's ridiculous. But what's great about Instagram and the police canine community is there's police dogs out there. So they really just want to be in front of the community. People love the dogs, they want to support them. So police canine units around the country have really been, they've been a large customer, but they've just been a great asset of really promoting the business. Look what this person is doing, remembering our fallen canines, trying to help canines around the country get vests. So another big mission that I want to support is American farmers and specifically veteran farmers. There's a lot of veterans transitioning out of the military right now that are going into agriculture, and the USDA is really pushing veterans to get into the agriculture industry. So again, this kind of goes back to my challenges of finding the right supplier, getting those ingredients to my co-packer at a somewhat costly or cheap amount, and then getting those products distributed. So that's really kind of my struggle right now, where I need the most help to actually grow the business. So as far as opportunities for veterans that want to be entrepreneurs, there's so many amazing things out there. So I'm sure most of you are familiar with Inc. magazine and the Inc. 5000. So they offer 25 slots for military veterans or military spouses to be a special delegate for the entire Inc. 5000 conference, 3 days. You have full VIP status. They seat us in the front row of everything, private meet and greets with some of the top CEOs around the world growing amazing businesses. They partner us up with a mentor for a day and kind of that whole time that we're there. And they put us with someone that is specific to our industry that could really help us. So it's to have these opportunities where you have access to these types of people, it doesn't happen to a lot of us. So I fully take advantage of everything that I'm able to do. Real quick, Bunker Labs, RDU, I don't know if any of you are familiar with Bunker Labs. It's a nationwide nonprofit, and they're based in Chicago, and we have a chapter here that's been here for about 2 years. So I pretty much have been a part of them from the beginning, and we do a lot of events. We have a Bunker Brews that we're rolling out pretty much monthly. We have a Bunker Muster coming up in September. These events are open to people that are not just veterans. So we really want to invite the whole community to be a part of these events, attend things when you can, and really it's just about building an ecosystem of great entrepreneurs and having community support. The website's there. You can go out and find more information, talk to me afterwards. So this year I won another business competition. I just entered these competitions and I keep winning. So this latest one was through SCORE and Sam's Club, and I entered this one earlier this year. There were over 1,100 applicants. They picked 2 winners from every state, so there were 102 winners, and I was one of the winners from North Carolina. So they flew us to Reno in April for a 3-day conference, 2.5 days, networking event, business classes, training, all sorts of good stuff. So we all officially have the title of the 2018 American Small Business Champion. The next phase of competition actually ends the end of this month. So the next phase of competition is to win $15,000. So they're going to name 3 businesses as grand champions, and that will be announced to us internally the first week of August, and then it'll be officially announced in September at a gala in DC that they'll fly us out to for that official announcement. So I'm also into other contests currently. So the Bob Evans Heroes to CEOs contest and StreetShares Veteran Small Business Award. So again, that last one through StreetShares is sponsored by Sam Adams Beer Company. They're doing a huge push for veteran entrepreneurs again, and every quarter they're offering $25,000 to be split among 3 businesses. So great opportunities for veteran entrepreneurs, and I take advantage of all of them. All right, so I have cards up here that you can grab at the end. This is all of my information where you can find me, connect with me, and hopefully you've all had samples of dog treats at this point. So at this time, if there's any questions.
Jessica, I'm going to start up here in the back, and we're going to pass the microphone, so bear with us so that we can all hear the questions for you. Talk about where you're selling right now. You have now a co-founder working with you. You've mentioned the contract manufacturing and distribution as being one of your major challenges at the moment. But tell us a little bit more about where you are now. Where have the competitions allowed you to get to at this point in terms of sales? You have fantastic packaging. You know, how did that happen? Give us a little background.
Sure. So I'm still the only person running the business. I don't have a co-founder or anyone to do anything yet. So I sell online. That's where I get the most of my sales. I am in retail stores, small retail kind of higher end pet stores throughout the US, California, a couple here in North Carolina, a couple of breweries. So really the product fits more into a high-end pet retail store. We're not really the PetSmart and Petco type of product for a multitude of reasons. The biggest one for me is those types of stores sell live animals, and generally it means those animals are coming from some type of a puppy mill, or they're just not healthy animals. So if you look at a lot of higher end brands, you're not gonna find those brands in those types of stores. And so that's gonna be something that, you know, I'll really stick to. There's gonna be a lot of values behind the company, and there's a lot of other companies that are doing very well, and they've kind of stuck that out, and so I know that it's possible.
Jessica, how can people in the room help you?
Buy dog treats. Well, the biggest thing kind of going back is figuring out distribution. So right now I do have a co-packer, so I no longer make the treats here in North Carolina. So in order to scale, I did find a co-packer just outside of Chicago that makes them for me in some larger batches. That was kind of the biggest first hurdle I had, was finding a co-packer that didn't want to start out with 20,000 pounds of product. So most of these co-packers are so huge that they don't really work with startups. And so finding a company that was willing to start out at just, you know, much smaller scale, and when I say small, you're still looking at 8,000 pounds of product. So that's definitely been the biggest challenge. My next big challenge is getting the ingredients that I want to use to that co-packer, you know, that isn't gonna cost me, you know, way too much to where I'm not making any money. And that might be something that I'll have to do later. I might have to use those ingredients at the beginning. And that's pretty much what I'm doing now, except for a couple key ingredients, is they just can get those ingredients at such a lower cost already than I'm able to.
Jessica, so first of all, thank you for your willingness to fill in at the last minute. I know that's a tough spot to do, and you did a phenomenal job, and we appreciated your story. My question has to do with the competitions that you entered. I know in this room, there are individuals that have entered competitions or are thinking about entering competitions, and maybe have not had the success that you have had. So what kind of feedback have you received from those contests, those competitions, that would give you some indication as to why you did as well as you did?
That's a good question. So I think what has really been helpful is my product does have an emotional connection. And that really resonates with people, especially with dog lovers. They see the tributes to the fallen canines on the back of the bags and take my money and win stuff, and here you go. So that right there, and from the beginning at even a pet trade show I went to in Chicago, you know, I had pet buyers that would start crying in my booth when they saw what I was doing. So I thought, well, maybe I am kind of on the right path. And also, how many would you like to order? So I knew I was doing the right thing. And but as far as the competitions go, I mean, I don't know if I really have the right answer for that. It's just kind of been, I've really refined my business plan every time I enter one too, so I think that has helped. It forces me to really look at my business plan and refine it, because you have to tailor them differently for all of these contests. And, you know, I haven't won them all. There was one last year I didn't win, or two last year actually I didn't win. But just entering them, and it really just makes you look at every aspect of your business in so many ways. And sometimes the contests work out, sometimes they don't.
So Jessica, thank you very much for your presentation. Are you familiar with The Chef and the Farmer?
I do not think so.
Okay, first of all, it's a restaurant in Kinston, North Carolina. Secondly, it's a television show where the chef talks about how she links with farmers to get ingredients for her restaurant. Now, her restaurant changes menus seasonally, which you can't necessarily do. But you may need to sort of look at how she goes about connecting with farmers to get the raw food products that she needs in her restaurant.
And what was that called again?
The chef and the farmer, or is it the farmer and the chef?
One or the other.
Yeah, and she's really done quite well. It's on PBS, it's
Interesting, yeah.
a TV show.
Okay.
So I mean, she's really taken it from just a concept to a business and a television show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's excellent.
And her food is good, by the way.
Next question? Anybody?
There was one over here in the corner.
One of the products seemed to have been vegan, the other one seemed to be vegetarian. Is that the plan moving forward?
No. So these three products were just the easiest to kind of get started. I definitely do not promote any type of vegan treat. And so these are just 3 baked treats that really just kind of got the business going. Every treat does have to be certified by the North Carolina Department of Agriculture and any other states that you're selling in. So there were some things I wanted to do differently, and kind of following the pet industry trends. Some of the ingredients I use are kind of becoming novel ingredients, if you will, so the coconut oil, cranberries, certain things like that. So I just kind of started looking at trends of what is becoming popular right now and just try to put a different spin on things that are already out on the shelves. So the next plan is to actually start a jerky line. And I want to do more novel proteins and also things that are more just sustainable. So I'm not going to focus on beef, but I found a veteran farmer just outside of West Virginia, and they have a bison farm. So I'm looking at bison, elk. One of the other small business winners for the score competition, she was the only other veteran that won, and she has a cricket farm. So crickets are becoming popular. Also within the pet industry, so basically using it as a powder, so as your flour base. So that is a much more sustainable food than trying to get protein from cattle. So hopefully she and I will be working together soon as well. But again, there's no intention of doing anything vegan.
Thank you for your service too, first. But have you thought of talking to the like NC State Veterinarian School, and maybe getting ideas of key things that maybe animals require, and then tying it into kind of your twist of doing novelty items? That way you can actually say, okay, I'm actually working with veterinarians to enhance the dog's longevity, protein, all the different things, but do the spin on what you're saying and from the novelty side and making it marketable.
Yes, so I actually do have a couple veterinarians that I work with a little bit on the side. They're not here local, they're in other states. But where I would do that at a more extensive level is, just thinking of things that I want to add to the brand, and if I started to get into supplements or things like that, that's definitely where I would connect with an actual veterinarian to make sure you're putting the right amount, the right ingredients, because so much, especially in the pet industry, things aren't as regulated and people can get away with. It's amazing now that I'm really kind of in that industry and seeing they're not lies, but it's not so truthful, just how they market things. And I certainly don't want to, associate my brand with that at all.
Jessica, one more question from this corner of the room. Maybe I missed it in your presentation, but how do you connect with police forces to make them aware of this revenue stream? And are they involved in some way in your marketing campaign?
Yes, absolutely. So every dog that is on the back of the bag, I have permission directly from the handler. They pick the photo, and then they also, the little blurb that's on the back of the bag, that actually comes directly from the handler as well. So I just started reaching out to canine units and handlers. So in 2016, when I started the business, there were 35 police canines killed that year. There were 8 in just the month of January. And that was really kind of what sparked the idea, is I've always kind of followed a lot of these canines and just seen what they do. But when I started seeing so many killed, that was when I really wanted to take action and do something a little bit more. So that was when the idea came. And I just started reaching out to public affairs offices and canine units, and every single one of them was so receptive to the idea, how this random person even knew their dog was killed. And they just thought that it was so great. And I would say my biggest, probably one of my biggest supporters is the San Bernardino County Sheriffs. And they're the biggest county in America. They have a huge canine unit. Canine Jojo was the first dog killed in January of 2016. And they still, 2 years later, 2.5 years later, they just market my business for me. I've kind of created a lot of marketing things that they can use at their events and things like that. So they're just willing to do it. You know, it's great for me and it's great for them. They love that their dogs are remembered, and you know, people are still talking about their dogs 2 years later.
Jessica, we have one here.
Yeah, a couple things. I didn't read on the label. Is like a certain set percentage of your sales go toward these programs? That's the first question. Second question is, I guess, do you eventually see yourself transitioning to be like a full-fledged B Corp? And then the third question would be, I get that you don't necessarily want to be at Petco or some of those stores, but what's your plan? Do you have a plan to get on grocery store shelves? Is your price point not really appropriate for that kind of mass merchandising?
So right now, I donate 10% of sales. I donate a lot more products right now than monetary donations, just because I'm still growing. So I do make a lot of donations, one here to a local nonprofit where they rescue shelter dogs and train them to be service dogs for veterans. I also do 2 big donations to deployed military working dog teams, usually around the summer months and then around Christmas time. B Corporation, yes, absolutely. It's already on my radar to do. I've gone to some events on kind of how to get it going, and I've talked to a couple people that have their own businesses that are certified. That's absolutely something that I want to do. And what was your last question?
What's your plan to get on grocery store shelves with mass merchandising?
Yes, so grocery stores, that's a whole other battle. I have had a couple distributors reach out to me. So after I won the SCORE competition, I had some national coverage that was picked up nationwide. And so I had people just finding me and reaching out to me. And there were a couple that were specific to distribution in grocery stores. And I quickly learned it's just a whole other path that I'm definitely not at the stage. I'm not ready for that right now. And again, this is probably a Whole Foods type of a brand, not Food Lion type of a brand if you look at what's on their shelves. And so there are other pet chains that I'm looking into. There's Bentley's Pet Stuff. They have about, they're over 80 stores now throughout the Midwest and coming through the East Coast. So they're a higher end pet chain, and that's really where my product fits a little bit more. And then Tractor Supply, actually, so they do open buy days 3 times a year. They have one this Friday. I missed out. I applied a little bit too late, so I didn't get an appointment, but I am going to apply for their next one in November. So I think this could be a good fit there. They're really getting into the pet space. 2 years ago, they also acquired a pet chain called PetSense. They're smaller PetSmarts. In fact, the guy that started PetSmart founded PetSense in 2005. They don't sell animals, and they carry some higher end brands. So they're just more kind of in your rural areas where it'd be too expensive to put up a PetSmart. So that I think would be a major focus, especially with the end of ingredients from farmers, things like that. So that's one that I'm really focusing on.
Hang on just a second, Ted. Jessica, does your background in healthcare play into your selection of ingredients and all that sort of thing? And if so, do you promote that as part of your brand yourself, as part of your brand?
It does a little bit. So I actually studied nutrition science in college, just kind of for fun as part of, I have a bachelor's in biology. I guess it plays a part with kind of my knowledge of food, but I don't really promote it as kind of a knowledge base behind the brand.
A couple things I was thinking through as we're talking. Tying into some of the service groups that take dogs and do them for like PSD, issues with vets, I would tie into them and see if they could leverage, and maybe they would use your products or promote your products, because a lot of them I could see this just boom, they would do it. The other thing that I'm thinking of is tying into a lot of the dog events, like Fairgrounds here has these dog, you're talking dogs from everywhere to show up. Having yourself or maybe a representative there, because that is high end. These people really go after, the high end products for their dogs. That the dogs are number one, in this whole thing. And another thing, and I don't know if they still do it, but I used to buy products because from a specific person that marketed high end dog food, and they were the only one that distributed it. I don't know if that still happens, but again, that might be another avenue, especially in other areas. In that, just some suggestions.
So regarding nonprofits that specialize in getting dogs for veterans, so there is one locally here in Durham that I work with, or that I have worked with, Vets to Vets United. So I would want to support a local nonprofit when I can. I have reached out to a couple others, but if they're too big, they already actually have sponsors of pet food and treats, and so they can't even take donations from me. And then the other issue is, again, it kind of happened after I got some national coverage, is every nonprofit wants something for free, which I get, it's great, I would love to help you all, but I've had to turn so many people away because I do already have designated groups I donate to, and it's to a point, especially this early on, I can't keep giving stuff away for free. I can only do so much.
I would, not for giving, but let them market, help saying your product and selling it.
They do, and the local one here has done that, and I've gone to events with them, but again, if they're larger organizations, they can't even take samples from me, they can't promote my business if they're already working with another pet company. Events, I have done a lot of events around the Triangle, the Dog Olympics at NC State, other events, and I really focused on that the first year. Quite honestly, it almost wasn't worth my time and money for some of them. So many of these events they're more socialization events with your dogs, and I would get some sales, but again, it was generally, and it is good, I get it's good to get out there and just have people get familiar with your brand, but they get to be a lot of work when you're doing one every weekend, and it's not really, making a great return for me.
Anybody else?
So I'm wondering, are you able to target the packaging for the markets? So like when you're marketing your product in San Bernardino, do you have the San Bernardino dogs on those packages and then say Fuquay Marina with dogs from that area?
Yes, so some of the materials I have sent specifically to San Bernardino for them to use, it's all about focusing on Canine JoJo. And then, they have people in that area when they go to events, they have special discount codes they can use on my website, things like that. So it is really about focusing. There's the Police Canine Association in Ohio. Canine Jethro, who was the second dog that was killed in 2016, and he made national news, and they're a huge organization, and again, they've been helpful in promoting the business, and yes, and people that especially are connected to those dogs that are right in that area, or if I get online orders, I try to make a note of where people are from, and again, if it's a local dog, I make sure they get that dog on their package.
So I'm sure there are pros and cons, but what about third party on Amazon.com?
So that is a plan. So interestingly enough, pet food and pet treats last year were the #3 top selling products on Amazon. It's huge. In fact, this year they just created their own private label of pet food because it's Amazon, and why not? So I've got someone that's helping me with that, so it is definitely a place I'm gonna be out on, but I'm not out there yet.
Anybody else? I have one final question. What about the commissaries, the military commissaries? Are you selling there?
So I have a connection actually that is working on that for me as well. That's a whole other battle trying to get those, but that is, my products have already been presented to the buyers, and they're receptive to it, so just kind of now it's a waiting game.
Good. Yeah, the military Costco, that's what I think of.
Yes.
All right, Jessica, thank you very, very much.
All right, thank you.